Hello and welcome. You're watching News9 and this is Business Plus. We're bringing you stories from the world of business policy and economy. First up, let's begin with markets as usual. With me in the studio is my colleague Suyash Maheshwari, who's sitting here to give us an update of what markets did, how they did, and in fact they did phenomenally.
Actually, Indian markets did end in the green, but it was a day of range-bound trade where Nifty traded in a range of about 70 odd points. Now, at close, Sensex was up about 0. Let me just pull up the numbers, 0.12% and close above the 65,000 levels, which is a good news for the bulls. But we saw some buying interest in Nifty, but the index failed to close above the 19,350 mark, Shweta, which according to analysts will be a crucial resistance for the index going forward. So unless the index is able to cross those levels, we won't see any fresh buying interest. At least that's what we are getting from the experts over here. Now, mid-cap and the small-cap indices also ended with gains. Nifty mid-cap 100 was up about 0.3% and Nifty small-cap index was up about 0.5%.
All right, let's quickly get in. Gaurang Shah, who's the Senior Vice President at Geojit Financials, joining us live on the show at this point in time. Gaurang, thanks very much for taking time out. Is it right to say that this is the beginning of some sort of rally? Green shoots are back?
Thank you, Shweta, and good evening to all of you. So, I think we are going to spend some more time in this range of 19,200, 19,300 on the lower side, and 19,500, 600 being the top heavy feeling where we have been a couple of times, but we have not been able to go beyond that, and there is some selling pressure. In terms of the consolidation phase, well, in a way, it is good to see this consolidation because this is a base building exercise, Shweta, as we call it, for the next move upwards beyond 19,500 and 600 as and when we go there and crossover. So the more time we spend in this consolidation zone, the better it is because it makes a very strong foundation for the next move to be able to withstand that next leg up and of course be over there and then go beyond that. So, and of course, in terms of triggers also, Shweta, there is nothing much that we can look forward to. More or less, I think whatever happens in the immediate future, the only trigger that I wish would be positive rather than negative is the monsoon, the kind of deficit that we are seeing. So that may create a little bit of overall.
Hi, Gaurang.
Sorry, sir. Yes. Just a follow-up question on that. Since you talked about monsoon, a couple of other triggers, of course, expected next week as far as GDP data, trade deficit data is concerned. Monsoon, a lot of studies are saying that despite all the unseasonal and rather heavy monsoon that we've seen in this part of the region, in this part of the country, which is the north of India, and from where I come from, that is Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, despite all the havoc that rain has caused, it so appears that this season rainfall could be less than what it was last year or year prior to that. The impact of El Nino could weigh in on inflation. Are you worried about that at all?
Worried, yes, definitely, because our country is largely dependent on monsoons and how kind the rain gods are, and that is primarily because, Shweta, large part of our population is associated with agri-activity. Yes, in the north and the northeast, there has been heavy downpour, which has led to flood situation, crops which were standing getting washed off. In this part of the world where we are right now in Maharashtra, there is almost 60% deficit, if my numbers are right. And in southern other states like Kerala, there is equal amount of deficit. So if this deficit is going to be there, that is going to impact the agri output. And I think governmentally, rightly so, has taken steps to ban certain rice imports, some quality of rice exports that were happening, that has been banned to possibly curtail. And of course, other fruits and vegetable related inflation. So in the immediate short to medium term, we may have a little bit of worry as far as inflation numbers are concerned. But I think over a long period of time, we should be able to digest that.
Hi, Gaurang. Suyash. Just wanted to get your outlook on global equities, especially at a time when the three main drivers of global economy, China, US and Europe, are reeling under pressure.
Well, Suyash, I think whatever happens in China is very difficult for me to digest because there is not much of credibility, to be very frank, with the kind of news flows that come out. And of course, there is validity question also over there. And compared to China, US and some other parts of the Europe, I think we are in a much more better place, and that's exactly the verbatim that the Honorable RBI Governor also gave us when the credit policy was announced. And even other data points, if you go to see whether it is inflation, whether it is interest rates, whether it is GDP number, whether it is corporate earnings, or whether it is the IIP numbers, I think we as India are in a much more better position compared to those part of the world. And my sense is that trouble in those part of the world could be opportunity for country like India, because we have more stable and more strong data points in terms of all these things that I've mentioned. So let's hope that we do have some amount of positivity. But for the moment, yes, because there is an overhang in China, US, and other part of the Europe, rest of the Europe, there could be a short-term blip that we might have to face.
So, will it be safe to say that the current correction that we have been seeing over the last 5 weeks is because of a risk-off sentiment in global equities?
It is a little bit of risk off. It is people just waiting and watching. Not to forget, we have a couple of state elections before we end this year, calendar year, 2023, and next year we have a much larger event unfolding. So I think there are certain, events which are likely to happen, which may possibly, restrict flows into India. But eventually it will come through. And I think the way we have lined up ourselves in terms of the growth, I don't think we are going to go anywhere, haywire as far as growth numbers are concerned. And even if you look at the kind of flows that we've seen from the start of this year, I think we should not be complaining.
Okay, and let's also get your opinion on sectoral performance. But before that, let's quickly get in Suyash to explain how various sectors performed.
Definitely, Shweta. So, we saw some selling pressure in PSU and FMCG names. They were actually one of the outliers, both sectors were outliers in yesterday's trade. Power and realty sectors, Shweta, both indices ended in today's trade about 1% higher. Nifty IT, which opened with gains of about 0.6%, saw some profit booking at higher levels, and the index ended about 0.3% higher. Nifty Bank, on the other hand, after scaling highs of about 44,670 levels, we saw some profit booking at higher levels, and the index largely ended flat below the 44,500 mark.
All right, Nifty Metal up by as much as 1.28%, Nifty Realty up by 1.69%. Gaurang, what is helping these two sectors?
I think purely sure that if you go to see the earnings that both the private as well as public sector banks have delivered, they've been quite good. And in fact, in some parameters, they were much beyond what our estimates were. Even the verbatim going forward into this financial year, for the second, third, and the fourth quarter, our view is that credit demand is going to be very, very robust, which will keep the loan book growth at a very steady run rate. And that will possibly translate into higher levels of net interest income and margins. You have NPAs both on the net and the gross front coming down, and thereby your provisioning is coming down. And interest rates are stable. This was the third time that we saw a pause from the Monetary Policy Committee and the announcement made by the Honorable Governor. And let's hope that if the inflation doesn't going to play a spoil sport, we possibly have a longish period of pause, and then possibly in early part of 2024, first 3 calendar months, that is Jan, Feb, March, if the inflation numbers are at a comfort zone, then you might see rate cuts also coming through. It's a wishful thinking, Shweta, but let's hope for that. So I think banking and NBFCs is something that will be in focus, along with both private as well as government companies which are playing a very crucial role in defense, Make in India, Made in India. Though they have rallied over the last 1 year, I think with the kind of order book that they are talking about, there is tremendous amount of growth potential. FMCG, though it's a little bit of small dark spots, if I can say that.
Right. I wanted to come in on FMCG because it all really depends on the discretionary spending in the months to come, and all of that will in turn depend, especially in, as I said, apart from north of India, in the west of India, in south of India, it will really depend on how the monsoon pans out. All of that dependent on how much money.
Also commodity prices,
and the commodity
because
prices,
of the crude prices are rising.
Absolutely. With rising crude prices, all of that could weigh in on discretionary spending. What's your view on the FMCG sector?
So, Shweta, India has been a consumption-driven economy. Let's face it. In difficult times, you might switch over to alternative rather than going on. For example, if you would be using, say, a Dove soap, you would possibly go and buy a Lifebuoy soap. That's what the equation I always tell people. But it's not like you're not going to have bath. Let's face it. So you are going to switch over to either lower segment or mid segment from high segment, but you are definitely going to consume. And as and when the situation improves, you are again going to come back lock, stock, and barrel in terms of higher consumption for higher margin products. So we are extremely positive about FMCG, but like I mentioned, because of deficit drain, there may be a lower level of discretionary spend, which may possibly make consumers switch on to lower end category products, which will impact margins because higher end products, command higher margins, lower end, lower margins. So you may see a little bit of blip over there, but it's not like it's going to be long lasting.
Gaurang, before we move on to stocks that were in focus today, I just wanted to get your view on Nifty Bank. The index has underperformed the market. It is down about 3% in the last 1 month, whereas Nifty is down about 1%. What's your outlook on Nifty Bank?
Well, if I am so positive about banking and NBFCs, it gives me no reason why I should not be positive on Bank Nifty. And let me tell you one thing, and I stand to be corrected if my numbers are not right. I think Bank Nifty was the first one to make an all-time high. I stand to be corrected. Before Sensex and Nifty, Bank Nifty was the one that made an all-time high. And whenever you see outperformance in a particular sector or a sectorial index, there comes a time of consolidation. The way we are seeing in Sensex and Nifty, Bank Nifty is also going through a consolidation period. But like I mentioned, I think numbers for the next 3 quarters, that is second, third, and fourth quarter, and even I would step up further, even for the next financial year, I think they are going to deliver fantastic set of numbers. And I'll put one thing very simple. If India is dreaming about becoming the next $1 trillion economy, I think banking and finance is going to play a very, very crucial role.
Okay. Let's also quickly move on to the top gainers and losers.
Yes, Shweta. So, among the top gainers today was UPL and Jio Financial Services. Now, Jio Financial Services was locked in the 5% upper circuit today after, of course, we saw a block deal where about 50 million shares of the company changed hands. And then we also got some clarity in the 46th AGM of RIL where about the business model that Jio Financial Services is going to adopt. Now, the company said that Jio Financial Services will enter the insurance segment and it will offer life, general and health insurance policies. Now, we also knew before that Jio Financial Services also plans to enter the mutual fund industry along with BlackRock. Now, UPL was also in the news today. The stock surged about 2.5% in today's trade after HSBC said that it expects a recovery in the company by Q3. Hindalco, Tata Steel and Hero MotoCorp also ended today's session with moderate gains. Now, among losers was Bharti Airtel, which it was down about 1.73% in today's trade. It was the worst hit stock among blue chips. The stock was down because...
What triggered the sell-off, Suyash?
So there was a block deal in which more than 1 crore shares of the stock changed hands at a price of about 852. So because of that block deal, Bharti Airtel saw some profit booking, but Bharti Airtel has been on a bullish run and the stock has been outperforming the market in the last couple of months. Hindustan Unilever was also under pressure today. The stock was on about 1.2%. Reliance Industries ended another session with losses of about 1% after it seems that investors were unimpressed by the announcements made in the 46th AGM of Reliance Industries, as they were expecting some timeline on the spin-off of the Jio platform and the retail business. Dr. Reddy's and Axis Bank also ended with losses of about 1% in today's trade.
All right, so Bharti Airtel down by as much as 1.73%. Reliance, in fact, recuperating some of its losses from the early trade session when the markets began. It was down by almost 1%. Geofin, good news coming in there for people who've been looking at the Jio Financial stock.
More than good news, I think there is some clarity. Like they understand now where what market Jio Financials is targeting.
Good news is also, clarity is also good news.
Definitely.
The stock performance is also good news, but let's also get in Gaurang to weigh in on Geofin at this point. So we now know, Gaurang, for a fact that Geofin will enter the NBFC space. It will start offering insurance from health to general insurance. There'll also be an AMC business there. How are we expecting one entity to encompass such different businesses, from insurance to AMC and NBFC, all of that, different regulators, different set of businesses, one company? What are you seeing Jio Financials doing in future?
Well, along with that, name of BlackRock, Shweta,
Yeah.
whom they are partnering with. So, if you just look at the kind of reach that Reliance Industry has in terms of data, in terms of networking, in terms of technology, in terms of cash on balance sheet, and the announcement made yesterday in terms of where all they are wanting to take Jio Financial Services. And I would also possibly look forward to some announcement on the microfinance front also, because that's going to be the driving force going forward from here on. We don't have a standalone recommendation as yet on Jio Financial Services, but I think whatever has been said, I'm quite sure that it has laid a roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years for Jio Financial Services, whatever announcement, because it will take time to possibly get their act together, get approvals, and then possibly start at ground level. As far as Reliance Industries is concerned, I think they have laid a roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years. And it's going to be, and as they rightly said, I think the new age technology driven company is what RIL is going to be known as now going forward from here on. And I think whatever they have lined up and whatever statements that are made by Mr. Ambani, I think it augurs extremely well. But the sad part is that, management will take decisions depending upon what is good for the company going forward into the future. Management will not take decisions depending upon what is the sentiment of the market. So I think it was a lot expected. I think every time AGM happens, 1 or 2 before this, I think there's a lot of rumors that fly around. But management will take decision as depending upon what is good in terms of growth for the company.
All right.
Now, Gaurang, another stock that wasn't focused today was Zomato. The stock surged about 2%. In the last 3 months, it has surged about over 70%. What's your outlook on Zomato? Should investors book profits now, or is there more rally to come?
And this is the most difficult question that people ask me. Should you book profits or should you stay invested? Now, it all depends upon what's your appetite. Okay. So, if you bought it at 60 and if you're getting a 90 plus levels, I think wisdom and common sense should prevail upon you. But let me give a couple of disclosures before I go ahead with Zomato. We have a buy coverage on Reliance Industries. We have a buy coverage on Zomato also. I think we are targeting somewhere close to about 110 or 120. And what I am extremely excited about is forget about the food delivery business. They are doing well. But I think the Blinkit business, that is, provisions getting reached to your doorstep, that's going to be a major contributor to the balance sheet as we go forward from here on. And if you look at just the numbers that the management is talking about, I think it will do well. Yes, there were block deals in the past. There was block deal very recently. That may possibly act as an overhand on the counter for maybe a short period of time, maybe intraday or maybe 2 days. But what people don't see is that if some big guy is selling out, some other big guy is buying into it. So I would look at the second part of it. And I'm quite sure Blinkit contribution will possibly augur extremely well on the balance sheet.
All right, Gaurang, as much as we would like to have this conversation for a few more minutes, we're run short of time. Thanks very much. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you.